Today we're going to walk through an empty project and how we can use an empty project as a starting point for our future projects. In this project I've mapped out a couple of things. I've included some Flask templates. I've also included access to Datastore, but this one will really just get you started. It's not doing anything, but I wanted to take a chance to explain all of the different things that are happening here. So we probably want to start with our app.yaml. Our app.yaml doesn't really look altogether that exciting. It's a pretty straightforward app.yaml file. It identifies where our runtime is, so we're using Python 3.7. It allows us to map all of our static files to this static folder here. You can see the static URL is going to map to this static directory. And we could change the name of this static directory as long as we change the name of this directory over here. And then we also have all other URLs are mapped to this particular script. So let's take a look at that one. We're going to start off with main.py, and this is where you'll see our normal, kind of getting started. This is where we're going to map our different URLs. This is where we're going to create our app. So we have a couple of imports up here at the top, and we create our Flask app, and this is just going to pick up and start our Flask app based on this particular application. And we're going to use a couple of helper objects here, so let's take a look at those. So I've created a couple of helper objects, so instead of having really long, complicated function calls with different named parameters, we're just going to use this page data object, and it's going to allow us to collect different information so that we can show that in our templates. So if we scroll down and find that object, it's a really simple object. It's going to have a page title, and if we have any errors, we're going to collect those in our page data object, and we can just set parameters here so that when we actually want to access different values in our page, we can just pull those out of our page data object and use this P dictionary that we've created for our parameters. So we are going to show this using our show page function, and you can see that this show page is going to show for a particular template name. We're going to pass in this page data, and that allows us to kind of encapsulate everything that we want to show for our particular page. So going back up to the top here for our root, we're just going to create a really simple page data object, and we're going to show that page. And if we want to show some JSON data, we also have a similar helper object that's going to allow us to collect JSON data and then show that information as well. So let's scroll down and take a look at that at the bottom of this Python file. So we have this JSON data object, and this is going to allow us to collect errors and status as well as set particular data for this JSON object. So when we look at our show JSON function, what we'll actually see is we will create, this response dictionary. This is just going to be a collection of our errors, the status, and the data, the payload that we want to show to the page. We're going to convert that to a JSON string, and then we're going to send the Flask response here with a MIME type of application JSON, so it knows that we are sending through this JSON data. So if we want to look at a JSON URL, we can see a very simple one here. We're just going to throw in a sample property and some value, and we're going to return this show JSON, which is going to send us a JSON response to the browser. And this kind of gives us a framework to create other pages, other URLs that we're going to handle. So if we take a look, now that we've looked at our main.py and we've got all of our requirements mapped out in our requirements.txt, we can take a look at our Datastore file. So when we actually want to access anything in the Datastore, we can use this. And we've abstracted a couple of things out here, so we can have our get client in a common manner. We can have our load key. This is going to allow us to load a particular key based on a client. We'll need an entity type, so we'll create those. Those are the kinds, the entity kinds. We also need an entity ID, and if we don't have one, we're going to just create a new one here. And we can use parent keys, even though we probably won't have to deal with parents and ancestors that much in these applications. We can also load a particular entity. We're going to do that by passing in the client, the type, and the ID. And you can see here we're just going to use that load key to pull this up. So we're going to load this entity, and then if we want to create a new entity, we'll see here we can just load this empty key because we're not passing in that ID, and we're just going to create this particular type of Datastore entity. And then we've included a simple log message here so that we can see exactly what's going on. So this gives us the ability to easily expand and load additional objects from our data store. So now that we've done that, let's take a look at our templates. We have a base template, and the base template is pretty straightforward. We have just some simple HTML. We're going to pull in a style sheet, which is just a really basic style sheet. The only thing we're doing here is identifying the error formatting and the navigation. and then we have a couple of scripts. So I've tried to take all of the script code that we've seen in class and sort of make that generic and include this in this script.js that's going to do simple things like create our XML HTTP, send our requests, things like that. And then any app code, any code specific to our application in this particular JavaScript file. So this will give us a nice jumping off point for future examples. Now, if we take a look inside the base, you'll see, here's our page data object. We're going to be able to show the title here at the top of the page and also in our metadata at the heading, in the heading area here. Any errors that we've passed in, we're going to show all of those there if we have any. So, we have this nice error area, and we can add all of the errors so those can be displayed if we want to show those from the back end. And we can also show future content here. So if we look at our index.html, it's not going to do much except for say, welcome to the site. So let's go ahead and run our dev app server. We're going to bring this up, and it's going to take a minute to load, and after we get this started, we'll see, here we go, we're kind of bringing things up, we're running Python 3, we're, getting everything set up, lots of status messages here. And once this comes up, we're going to see how our main, this is going to route our request to our main.py, and everything's going to come together, and we can change things in line so we can actually see how that works. You can see it's also loading this py cache that as we run, it's going to create some, the intermediate compiled files that you're going to see for Python typically. So now we've done that, let's go ahead and see if we can preview, if this is ready. There we go. So we have our welcome. So now you can see this is actually going to pull up all of the different static files. If I were to go in and change the style, let's say we want to change the body to have, we'll say font family. Let's say, well, we'll do something here like, there's a lot of options here. Let's say impact. Here we go. That's a nice little set of font families. So we'll go ahead and refresh, and you'll see how that's going to change the look of our site. So it is pulling our static files. It's doing all of that appropriately. And if we wanted to test out, the error functionality or the JSON, let's start with the error functionality, and we can go into this and we can say pd add error. And if we look down, right here we've got our function. If we scroll down, we see we have this add error. This is a test of the error functionality. And if we go back to our page and refresh, well, we should see that. Let's go ahead and make sure that this picked up the file change. Yeah, there we go. We got the file change coming. Now we should be able to refresh. And it's not showing up. Super weird. So let's see here. When we show the page, let's take a look at this. We're going to show our render template. And in our render template, we should have errors. So let's go ahead and try one more time to update this. Save that file. There we go. There it is. Sometimes these things, they take the dev app server takes a second to update. So you can see here we've got this error. And if we want to take a look at our JSON, we just have to look at what our sample was here, JSON sample. So JSON sample. And here you can see this is what our object is going to look like. So we kind of have the basic setup so that we could very easily add in some different AJAX calls. We could have the Datastore calls here, and we'll take a look at those in future examples. Thanks for watching.